The neighborhood was clean because if somebody dropped a napkin, somebody dropped a cone wrapper, somebody threw any kind of garbage on the ground, Jerry was outside and after him. He chased a kid, halfway across the parking lot if he had to. People got used to him. I mean, everybody in the neighborhood knew him. Everybody in the neighborhood knew some of his ways. And a lot of people talked about some of his ways, but they all enjoyed coming there, up and down the street. Say go to Dairy Queen, most of them knew who Jerry was. Everybody knew each other. Everybody knew where they lived, where they went to school. It was a nice time.
My first impression of Jerry, everybody was scared.
I do not want to make this guy mad.
Strict, very set in his ways.
I was a little bit afraid of him, but then I realized he was a softie.
Some would say intimidating.
He had ways that he wanted things done, and if they weren't done his way, you knew about it. But I was more of a rule follower back then, so I did what he asked.
There's a clear expectation of what he wants, and then helps you get there by kind of leading you along the way.
We had the end of the night cleaning list, and he would, we heard horror stories when we started, like, he's gonna come in and check under that cooler. And if there's sprinkles, you're getting circled.
In 1950, my grandfather and my father went to Kenmore to look at a used car on Tremont Avenue and Elmwood. Right across the street in the summertime is this new enterprise called the Dairy Queen. My father was totally enthralled. And he walked across the street to check it out, and who's working behind the counter but a fellow Knight of Columbus friend of his named Charlie Lazzaroni. So my father was invited in, he looked out, and he was enthralled by the cleanliness and the uniqueness of it. 2 years later, he opened up his own Dairy Queen on the basis of what he learned originally from the Elmwood store. So here, 63 years later, I buy that store. So I've completed the circle. The store that got my dad interested, we now own in our little kingdom. My sister Jackie and I worked at my father's Dairy Queen every summer, virtually began working there immediately. I mean, at 10 years old, I was a lot boy, and then at 12, I was waiting on customers, and Jackie at 10 or 11 and 12 was cleaning and waiting on customers too. We just thoroughly hated it because we worked, friends were going to the beach, having fun, playing on Saturday mornings, and we were not. It was required, it was necessary to do that for the family. Also, I hated it because my father had to work every winter because the volume was so small that he couldn't afford not to work. He had to sustain us financially, he had to work all winter. So I said, gee, he's working 7 days a week during the summer, 12 hours a day, and then has to work all winter long? I don't want to do this. Well, then in the mid-60s, the volume started to grow successfully, and they began to be able not to have to work in the winter. And then they began to take really nice trips, my mother and father did, with their travel trailer. And I looked at that and said, how the heck am I working in corporate America going to do that? I'm not going to be able to. So I tried to buy a Dairy Queen in Rochester, which fell through. And then in 1969, I bought the Walden store. That was my first location. And the rest is pretty much history. I mean, I've added stores here and there. We owned, as you said, the Delavan store, Abbott, and Cone King. And then we acquired French Road in, I guess, '06, and then a couple years after that we got Elmwood Avenue in Kenmore. And the advice people have given me, my dad, for example, taught me that you do pay attention to your business. You can't ignore it. In fact, some people say, well, you're really lucky, you're working for yourself. Well, you're not. You're not working for yourself. You're working for your business. Your business will tell you what needs to be done.
Some of the important things that he's taught me are to be predictable and to be reliable, to be consistent. Be consistent with your customer service, be consistent with your product, and those are all concepts I didn't understand before working with them. When we talk about molding people and changing their lives, I mean it when I say I would be a different person if I didn't get that opportunity to work with them. It's awesome to be part of such a legacy because when you think of the reach that him and his businesses have had, they expand beyond Buffalo.
Coming from working for somebody else for 10 years and working then for Jerry, the difference was night and day as far as what they expected from me. I learned a lot going forward what it means to be truly dedicated to the job and the company.
Another memorable moment in my career was, and it's not even a positive one, But a coworker and myself caught another coworker stealing. And it was hard to find some evidence, and I did, and I called Jerry and Pam up right away and said, you need to come down here. And they came right down to the store, and they went home and did some more of their own investigating, and she was fired. And a couple weeks later, Jerry, handed me an envelope of cash and said, I have employee fraud, on my insurance, and I want to give you part of it because of what we recouped. And he didn't have to do that. I felt like I was doing my job, but that's just the kind of boss he was.
It definitely gave me like the groundwork and the foundation to become a good leader. 16-year-olds do not have discipline. There's not many out there. He set the ground rules right when we started. If you need a day off, you need to let me know way in advance. It's frowned upon to call in sick. I never called in sick while I worked there.
I do think he taught me to be a good worker, be respectful of my coworkers. If you don't show up, it's not affecting you, it's affecting others as well, and him. He really molded a lot of South Buffalo teens into pretty responsible human beings, and I think that's a really big thing that he should be proud of.
I would say my most memorable moment with Jerry, I called him for help with the machines. The chocolate stopped working, and I needed help getting the pump back up and running. Maybe there was lack of communication with whether or not the nozzles were open in the front, which they were not. So when he started taking apart the pump in the walk-in, the pressure exploded the mix, and it was all, he comes out covered in chocolate mix. Yeah, that was probably my most memorable moment with him.
He just was funny with the customers. Customers would say the rudest things to Jerry. And, I would never, the customer's always right. And there's been times where Jerry just, when they would haggle over the prices and taxes and about something going up 5 cents, he would just, pretty much make a joke. But he was also letting the customer know that they weren't right.
I was working with him at the Abbott Road store when I first started with the company, and a man wanted peanuts in his milkshake. And Jerry said, okay, so let me get this straight. You want peanuts in your chocolate milkshake? And the guy said, yes, sir. And he goes, well, you're not going to get the peanuts through the straw, but hey, it's your money.
We had softball games during the summer at like 8 a.m.
There were some hungover mornings that we were like, why did we say we were going to play softball this morning?
Jerry would be there playing umping with us. We would then go to a picnic after the softball game. When Dairy Queen closed at 11, we would go out for hot dogs same day. Remember the stories I remember about Jerry.
It was just, a fun time, and I just, talking to other people my age, not a lot of people had that when they're teenage jobs, and a lot of people didn't keep their teenage jobs. The longevity that some of the people there had, is a real testament to what kind of place he was running. One of the biggest memories I have of working at Dairy Queen was going to Jerry and Pam's wedding.
I attended his wedding. He attended my wedding.
Jerry is a really good dancer. And at my wedding, we danced the night away. Jerry was spinning everybody around the dance floor and having a great old time.
I'm sure it's been not just one single moment, because after 50 years, there's lots of moments. I like the fact that virtually all of our stores that we have acquired over the years are larger in volume now than they were when we first got them. So that's testimony to the fact that we're running decent stores. And I guess too that children and offspring have followed kind of in the footsteps, you and Melissa, Christopher in his own way. My sisters, obviously, their kids, we have followed in my father's footsteps because it's an interesting way of life, and obviously one that we've found successful. So yeah, one moment in time, I don't have one. I got lots of them.
Lasting impacts Jerry has made, like I said, my work ethic.
Dairy Queen was my first job, so That was my first impression of like a leader and a boss, and I think that that's kind of carried me through things, you know, having those clear expectations, having high expectations for people, and that's kind of carried me into the career that I have now and continues at Dairy Queen as well.
Being in business for 50 years, especially nowadays, is definitely something. It's an accomplishment. It shouldn't be taken lightly. It's great to see a company rise and not fail, especially in a small town.
If you're there for a long time, you must be doing something right. You know? So if you're there for just a short period of time, you've screwed up in some way. You've got a bad product, you got a bad idea, you got a bad system, you have a bad location. If the longevity is in your corner, then you've done something right. If you were to ask me, pick one word that describes how I felt about this career, I would say it's rewarding.
I both admire and appreciate the opportunities that he's given me, the listening ears that he has when he does come in, the mutual respect that we have for each other. I feel like I can talk to him about anything.
This has been a big part of my life, so I've met a lot of great people. I've learned a lot of great things. I continue to stick around forever. So Pam and Jerry have been great to me. Thank you for everything that you guys have done.